Woohoo! Hey, good morning. It's Conservative Cat on Cities 92.9 The News and Talk Bloomington Normal. So do appreciate you tuning in each and every single morning. It is bright and early here on a Friday, 6:05 a.m. We've got so much to get to this morning, and we're going to just dive right in. But I've got a question for you. What are you doing for Christmas? Yesterday, I actually, big shout out to Bob's Woodworking in Lincoln. I went and I did some Christmas shopping, and he does like custom woodwork. And it was it was so much fun to kind of like look at all this artsy stuff. I'm not much of an art person, but I do appreciate some good woodworking. I don't know what it is. Paintings, I don't really understand them. Sculptures, definitely don't understand those. Things that I do like is woodworking, and I've actually taken up crocheting, which is a lot of fun. And I can appreciate like crocheted art because it takes a lot of work. Not that painting doesn't or sculpting. I just really like woodworking and crocheting is really cool to me. I don't know why. 309-451-9299. What kind of gifts have you gotten so far for your loved ones? Where are you going for Christmas? Are you traveling? Give me a text. I'd love to know. All right, let's get into today's top news. There's a group appealing. It's called Reform for Illinois. It's a nonprofit organization. They're dedicated to a more ethical Illinois. That's what Reform for Illinois is. And they're appealing this ruling on Evanston. So Evanston is in Cook County. They're appealing this ruling on Evanston's ranked choice voting referendum. Okay, largely the population of Evanston voters voted for this 2022 referendum to adopt ranked choice voting. Full disclosure, I don't like ranked choice voting. I am against ranked choice voting. However, I think that this court's decision, not a good one. And I'm totally all in for Reform for Illinois to appeal this decision. And in places like Cook County, ranked choice voting might be the only option to really get to the bottom of this corruption and to stop getting these Madigan Democrats in there and to have a fair fight, right? This ranked choice voting. I'm not, like I said, don't like ranked choice voting. But this is a court appeal or a court decision I don't agree with. So we're going to talk about that. We're also going to talk about Caroline Jean-Pierre. She's not denying it, folks. She's refusing to deny that Joe Biden is going to preemptively pardon Cheney, Fauci, possibly others, a preemptive pardon. They haven't been charged with anything. But if there are charges, then they would be pardoned from those crimes. So it's just wacky to me. So Caroline Jean-Pierre, she doesn't deny that Joe Biden is planning that. We're going to get to that. Plus, Whoopi Goldberg. She says that RFK Jr. is fat shaming people, fat shaming obese people. Come on, give me a break. She goes, sometimes people are just genetically larger. Look, I guess I could see that, but not really. I mean, what we're talking about here, maybe you're genetically larger, but what RFK Jr. is talking about and what he's concerned about are people who eat themselves into a state that is very, very bad for their overall general health. Okay, we're talking about people who have a diet of Funyuns and Mountain Dew. Okay, and RFK Jr. says that's a bad thing. Whoopi Goldberg, is trying to say that RFK Jr. is out there fat shaming people. She doesn't know anything about health. She talks about and she glorifies Ozempic, which we're going to talk about here in just a little bit. But first, I do want to start with this 82% of Evanston voters voting yes for this 2022 referendum. This referendum asked the voters if they wanted to adopt ranked choice voting. Ranked choice voting, if you don't know, it's tough to explain. The best way I can explain it is, you have all of these candidates and you rank them by preference. So, for example, if you have Darren Bailey and Governor J.B. Pritzker, and it would kind of eliminate primaries, ranked choice voting. You could have Richard Irvin, who else ran? Gary Rabin. They were all running for governor, and instead of them running in the primary, they would all kind of run against each other in one election. And then you would rank like your first choice, your second choice, your third choice, and your fourth choice, right? And you'd rank them by your preference. Okay, so that's what ranked choice voting is. It's funky. It's weird. I think that you run into the risk of having a very, very long ballot That's why we have primaries. That's why we have the two-party system. But I mean, I'm not totally against it. I think that for local elections specifically, I think that that's not too bad. And what I really don't agree with is this whole court decision about this referendum, and Reform for Illinois is appealing this recent court decision. It was made on November 12th. And what the court decided was really it limited the power of Illinois municipalities to reform their local elections. Okay, so if there was a binding referendum, which this is, where the people said, hey, we want to switch to ranked choice voting, they should be able to do that. Your local elections, your state elections, they should be dictated by the people. Okay, and if the Evanston voters want ranked choice voting, and 82% of them voted yes for it, then yeah, you have to acknowledge that. So the RFI chairman, his name is David Melton, he said that there are two parts to this Cook County judge, Maureen Ward Kirby's ruling. Okay, now this is out of the Center Square. One part of the ruling was where the judge had said the referendum was ambiguously worded. Okay. Here's my thing. If the judge wanted to rule, there's an argument to be made that ranked choice voting is unconstitutional. You could probably make that argument. It's against the United States Constitution. I could see maybe an argument there, but to go after this tiny it was ambiguously worded, the 2022, that means you're not even trying to shut that, you're trying to shut this down just for silly reasons. And the second part of the ruling was the Cook County clerk claimed to have no power to do anything to actually implement ranked choice voting, because she found that that the State Board of Elections has the power to certify voting equipment for use. Okay. Now, what she would have to do is, do her job, right? And she would have to submit the vendor would have to submit the equipment to the Illinois State Board of Elections, because I don't understand why, but the judge said that the county clerk can't do that for some odd reason. But the vendor, which is actually Dominion, they'd have to submit the equipment to the Illinois State Board of Elections to be approved and to be certified. Now, Melton said that these were silly little arguments, right? Because the judge could have just simply directed the Cook County clerk to work with the Illinois State Board of Elections and the equipment supplier, which is Dominion, and get it done, right? So he says, quote, this is what David Melton of RFI says. He says, we know, and we've put before the court, that there's a fact out there that Dominion, these voting machines that we're currently using in Cook County, in Evanston, we could change it to where we use the software that allows us to do the ranked choice voting. Okay, so they actually sell a software that allows you to do ranked choice voting. The machines allow for ranked choice voting. So it would be up to Dominion and to the Cook County clerk to kind of work with the State Board of Elections to officially certify it. Now, the judge said that she doesn't have to implement it because, that's a process and she's not capable of that process or whatever, and it's up to the vendor. Okay, well, then call up the vendor and tell them to submit the machines to the Illinois State Board of Elections to be approved. As a county clerk, you can do that. But they're just kind of silly arguments. They're trying to make it to where these people don't see their referendum implemented. That's the problem here, is if the people via referendum vote for something, then it has to be done. I don't like ranked choice voting, to be honest. I'm not a big fan of it. But David Melton here, he says that this push for ranked choice voting, the opposition anyway, the push against ranked choice voting in this Evanston, it is actually coming from the Cook County Democratic Party. That's what he says. He believes the opposition is coming from the Democratic Party. And here's why. Now, this is really interesting, especially to those of you who live in the town of Normal. I'm going to bring up a name here, and you're going to be like, what? Wait, that guy? So here's what Melton says. He says, quote, the Center Square, the Democratic Party feels that ranked choice voting would undercut its power in connection with slating candidates, getting fees for slating candidates. Now, it's not just the candidates who get money during an election cycle, okay? Campaigns get money, sure, candidates' campaigns get money, but the parties get money because they can charge fees for slating candidates. So they lose that with ranked choice voting. They lose the connection with slating candidates, the power of slating candidates. And they don't want to deal with the politics of primaries, okay? Now, if the Democratic Party had their way, they would never have a primary ever again. They just keep the same Democrat that's been there for 20 plus years, right? And then they just keep letting him go, right? And they don't want to deal with any primaries. They don't want anybody to primary their candidate, and they're sick and tired of kind of dealing with the politics of primaries, right? And they don't want to deal with any of that. So that's what they feel like the ranked choice voting would undercut its politics in primaries, because they're able to outspend other candidates in primaries and slate candidates, and they're able to control these districts right now. And ranked choice voting would kind of stir it up. Okay, so he says the Cook County clerk in this case, where this court ruling, they ruled in her favor, and they said that the county clerk did not have to implement ranked choice voting. They said that the Cook County clerk in this case was represented by Michael Casper. You probably know this guy. He's a well-known election law attorney who's, for a long time, he's actually been Michael Madigan's attorney, okay? And he has actively been representing the Democratic Party in Cook County. So David Mountain with RFI here, he, rightfully believes that there's opposition to implementing ranked choice voting coming from the Democratic Party. This is a Democrat operative, Michael Casper. Okay, he's represented Democratic Party. He's represented Michael Madigan. He's actually represented, you probably remember this. This is a story from back in 2022. Remember when Michael Casper was hired by the town of Normal to represent the town of Normal to try to prevent people from becoming town supervisor, running for town supervisor, appearing on the ballot. Okay, so he stopped that. There were people who ran for town supervisor in the town of Normal, and they tried to run on the ballot. And those candidates had actually received petition signatures, multiple petition signatures to try to get on the ballot. Now, we remember the judge, which I think his decision was completely wrong, the 11th Judicial Circuit Court Judge Mark Fellheimer, he dismissed any kind of legal action against Normal for this, saying his interpretation of state and municipal law does not indicate that they were legally obligated to approve the candidates' petitions for town supervisor for offices that were either appointed or non-existent at the time of filing. Okay, so the whole gripe here, remember when Citizens for a Better Normal, it was an organization of Normal residents, they had wanted to divvy up the town into districts. Okay, they because right now it's an at-large government, and you don't have somebody representing your district in Normal. And there was a push to try to get a question on the ballot that said, "Hey, shall the town of Normal be divvied up into some districts?" And they said no, right? And they shut that down in the courts. And there was a judge, Scott Casper, I believe it was, or Scott Courting. Scott Courting, he had said, hey, no, it's an incorporated town. They're not obligated kind of to do this districting thing. They're, by definition, an incorporated town. Now, under state law, what it used to say, it doesn't say that anymore, but what it used to say in the Illinois Municipal Code, right, the state law, it originally said that incorporated towns had to have an elected town clerk, an elected town supervisor, and those were elected positions. Now, historically, that's been appointed here in the town of Normal. The town supervisor now, I believe, is Pamela Reese, right? City manager or town supervisor, I don't know, whatever you call it. But there are positions that were laid out in the state code that had to be elected if you defined yourself as an incorporated town. So they defined themselves as an incorporated town, not a village, to where it was, hey, we could divvy up the village into districts. No, they defined themselves as an incorporated town, so therefore they didn't need the districts. But that means via the state law that you have to have these elected positions. I know it's getting kind of in the weeds here, but I'm giving you the background here. Now, we know that Michael Madigan operative, came and defended the town of Normal, bunch of Democrats over there. Okay, and they're all Democrats, Chris Coos, Pam Reese, all of them. So he came and he shut it down. He made it to where these candidates couldn't get on the ballot. So you see a pattern here, okay? They're not respecting the results of the referendum in Evanston, okay, where they wanted ranked choice voting. Like I said, I'm not a fan of ranked choice voting. However, it's a referendum, okay, and 82% of the voters said they wanted it. And now you're seeing, and back then, in 2022, December, here in the town of Normal, they didn't respect the people's choice again. Okay, there were petitions. People signed people's petitions for them to get on the ballot, to be on the ballot, and they're not respecting the voice of the people. So now that state law is changed. By the way, break a law, change a law, Sharon Chung. Remember, House Bill 3337, that was born and passed in the Illinois House in 2023 after that ruling in the town of Normal. That bill amended the Illinois Municipal Code that originally conflicted with the Normal Code. Normal's code said, it's an appointed position, not an elected position. And ultimately, Judge Mark Fellheimer agreed with Michael Casper, the Michael Madigan attorney, that Normal's code trumps the state law, essentially, right? But they changed the law. So, here's the problem with that ruling and that whole situation. It's like, wait a second. Why change the law if you guys were in the right? You changed the law because you broke the law. I mean, that's exactly what happened. So ranked choice voting, like I said, they want it there in Evanston, but they're being shut down by the courts. So they're appealing it. They're going to take it up. He had mentioned, David Melton, that he wanted to take it all the way up to the Supreme Court if that has to happen. But he explained ranked choice voting is a process that allows voters to rank candidates for a particular office in order of preference. He says the benefits are that it eliminates primaries, but it also has a significant benefit to help weed out the most extreme candidates. This is why I actually don't like ranked choice voting. If the most extreme candidates are on the ballot and that's what people choose, that's what people choose. You know what I mean? And I don't know. I mean, I can see benefits to ranked choice voting, but I've always been against it. Melton says it encourages candidates to take a less partisan view on issues. He suspects the appeal will be briefed in the spring and could perhaps be orally argued before the summer of 2025. So here's the thing. The judge won't rule either way in favor of RFI, even if the judge rules in RFI's favor. Ranked choice voting will not be implemented probably before the 2025 consolidated elections. But yeah, I know that was kind of in the weeds. It's a lot, but RFI, they are suing Reform for Illinois. They are appealing a ruling of a court that said, hey, the Cook County clerk is not obligated to implement ranked choice voting, although everybody voted for it. I mean, 82% of Evanston voters approved this 2022 referendum adopting ranked choice voting. It was a binding referendum. So there you have it. All right, I got to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to talk about Karen Jean-Pierre. She's not denying it, folks, that Joe Biden is going to probably preemptively pardon Tony Fauci. I'll be right back. Hey, good morning. Go ahead and smash that like button, share this out with your friends. I so do appreciate you tuning in each and every single day. Merry Christmas. Merry Christmas. So do appreciate you being here. Now, when we come back, we're going to be talking about Jean-Pierre. Jean-Pierre did not deny, so not denying it and refusing to say yes or no either way, that he is planning to preemptively pardon Liz Cheney, Tony Fauci, possibly others, Adam Schiff. Shifty shift. Shifty shift. So Kieran Jean-Pierre, she's not denying that Joe Biden is planning to preemptively pardon these people. Now, Liz Cheney is going to be protected for her, of course, alleged role in the J6 cover up. Okay, so did she delete evidence? I want to talk about Donald Trump and what he had said about Liz Cheney on this Meet the Press interview that he did. Don't know why he did the NBC Meet the Press interview, by the way. I thought that was kind of interesting. I was like, he owes nothing to these people, Donald Trump, but he went on NBC and he talked about Liz Cheney and he talked about Benny Thompson. Okay, he said Liz Cheney was behind it, so was Benny Thompson and everybody on that committee. It was the unselect committee. Remember, it was political thugs, creepy people, Adam Kinzinger, right? And what they did is inexcusable. They deleted evidence. Okay, and this evidence, just because the evidence wasn't in your favor, right, because the facts weren't in your favor, doesn't mean that you get to delete evidence. And this evidence could have prevented people from being prosecuted, and they took away people's freedoms. These J6ers, they took away these people's freedoms, locked them up, in some cases without any clothes, no bed. This is a terrible situation that a lot of these J6ers are in. And they wouldn't be in that situation if they didn't cover up the evidence. Okay. And they didn't delete the evidence. And that's what Liz Cheney and everybody on that committee did. They didn't give you the full picture that people were, walking in there and they had funny hats and they were ushered in by Capitol Police. And a lot of people who were ushered in by Capitol Police are still in prison today. And Donald Trump, we're also going to get to this story. He said, I'm going to pardon them within the first 9 minutes, maybe, if not the first hour, if not the first 9 minutes, the first hour of me being president. So I've had friends who have talked about that day. Now, I'm going to go even a step further. Some people will say, of course, there might be people who engaged in crimes and were actually beating people up and beating up police officers. I'm going to go a step further here, and I'm going to say that I don't think that there were any J6ers who did anything wrong. Maybe 1, 2. But even in those cases, we have got to look into that, because if those people start beating up on police officers, was it out of self-defense, and was it because the Capitol Police started it? Now, I've talked to people who were there that day. There was a group of people, huge crowd, right? Thousands of people, huge crowd right there in front of the Capitol, and behind them were Capitol Police, and they were firing rubber ammunitions, gassing them, tear gassing them, and kind of forcing them to walk up those steps and into the Capitol. So there was this force behind them that actually forced them into the Capitol. Not only did you have Capitol Police officers ushering people in and allowing them to come in and pretty much giving them a tour of the Capitol, okay, but you had officers that day who were shooting off rubber bullets, beating people with clubs. And I think that we've got to look into every single case, and we've got to specifically go in with this question in mind: did this person act in self-defense? When you've got rubber bullets flying, tear gas going, when you've got, and I remember this story, and I'll never forget it. I forget the names of the people. But this was widely reported. There was a Capitol Police officer who was tear gassing people, and there was an innocent J6er, right, who was tear gassed, didn't do anything, was just kind of in the crowd that day, and wasn't even near the Capitol. This was outside of the Capitol, okay? And they were tear gassed, and this J6er was rubbing their eyes, and then somebody had a bottle of water and started pouring some water into this person's eyes. To kind of clear them out. And then you see the officer come over, grab the bottle of water, and throw it down on the ground. Okay, and then push the person who was trying to help this J6er. So there were tons of victims that day. In fact, I would say it a step further, not just pardon these people, but the government should pay for damages for what happened on that day. So I'll make the argument right now. I think a lot of these J6ers were beaten and brutalized by Capitol Police officers, and that needs to be investigated. Woohoo! Hey, good morning. It's Conservative Cat on Cities 92.9, the news and talk Bloomington normal. So do appreciate you tuning in each and every single day, Monday through Friday. It's Friday, 6:31 a.m. We've got so much to get to. Before I took break, I was telling you a little bit about this group. They're appealing a court ruling on Evanston's ranked choice voting referendum. They're not implementing the referendum, although you had Evanston voters approve a 2022 referendum adopting ranked choice voting. So you had Reform for Illinois. They are appealing this recent court decision. They say actually limits the powers of Illinois municipalities to reform their local elections. Like I said, I'm not a fan of ranked choice voting. I think that there could be an argument. You could say it's unconstitutional. You could say it isn't the way we should be conducting our elections. However, if the people of Evanston, the voters, in which they did, 82% of them, if they voted for this thing, then you need to implement it for them, okay, as the Cook County clerk. And that's the bottom line, because this is really bad if our government starts to ignore the voice of the people. They've expressed their voice, they voted on it, you brought something to referendum. There's nothing more American than that, bringing something to referendum and then voting on it and then changing it. Okay, so you have to abide by that. Now, if you want to make an argument that it's unconstitutional, that ranked choice voting is unconstitutional, okay, argue that. But this ruling, it didn't talk about that. The ruling was the judge said that the referendum was ambiguously worded. Okay, you can't really. I mean, the people voted on it, right? If they thought it was ambiguously voted, it probably wouldn't have won. Okay, if it's ambiguously worded and the people read it and they were like, no, I don't understand what that means, they'll just say no. So it doesn't really matter if it was ambiguously worded, and even if it was, the people probably would have voted no on it. So that's a dumb argument, part of this ruling. And then the second part of that ruling was that the Cook County clerk couldn't do anything to implement it because there's a process and she doesn't want to go through the process. I mean, that's essentially what this ruling is. There's a process. You have to get the Dominion voting machine, the Dominion vendor, to submit the equipment to the Illinois State Board of Elections to certify it, and to in order to implement it, you have to get it certified by the Illinois State Board of Elections. Okay, then do it. Just work with the Illinois State Board of Elections and the equipment supplier, Dominion, and get it done. Before we do the break, I was telling you a little bit about Karine Jean-Pierre, everybody's favorite DEI hire. She did not deny that Joe Biden is planning to preemptively pardon Tony Fauci, Liz Cheney, and others. Tony Fauci, the guy who lied and then people died as a result. She also did not confirm whether Liz Cheney would be protected for her alleged role in the J6 cover-up, deleting evidence. Let's take a listen. Here we go.
Loaded around preemptive partisan. It would just be such an unusual, extraordinary step. We talk about in the news we've seen Liz Cheney, Fauci.
You're talking about the preemptive part.
Right. I understand you don't want to get ahead of the president's thinking, but are any of those names wrong or still? Can you tell? I mean, do you want to tell us anything about?
It would be a bad move on my behalf if I preempted the president or previewed anything that the president was thinking about, considering.
Okay.
And so this is something that he's going to talk with his team about, and I just don't have anything beyond that for you.
So she didn't deny it. She didn't deny that he is planning preemptive pardons for these people. So Trump, I want to talk about this Meet the Press interview that he did over the weekend. The president-elect Donald Trump railed that former Wyoming Republican Representative Liz Cheney. This is according to Fox News, and Benny Thompson and others on the J6 committee deleted and destroyed evidence related to the investigation, and they should go to jail for that. Yeah, that's inexcusable. Okay, if they find out and if they can get to the bottom of this and prove it, Cheney, and in order to do that, you got to charge him, you got to investigate him. Cheney did something totally inexcusable if you deleted and destroyed evidence along with Thompson. Here's what Donald Trump said. And the people of the Unselect Committee and the political thugs, Thompson and Cheney, creeps. He called them creeps. They deleted and destroyed all evidence. Wow. And Cheney was behind it, and so was Benny Thompson and everybody on that committee. And for what they did, they should honestly go to jail. That's what Donald Trump said in this Meet the Press interview. So you don't delete the evidence just because the facts are not in your favor. They wanted to go after these people hard, the J6ers. But the evidence proved that the J6ers did nothing wrong. And you can't delete evidence, especially when it comes to prosecuting American citizens while holding public positions intended to protect their freedoms, okay? They deleted evidence, prosecuted Americans, and they locked them up for things like trespassing. Although you had Capitol Police officers ushering people in, I'd take it a step forward, and you had Capitol Police officers forcing people into the Capitol via rubber ammunitions and tear gas. Okay. The Unselect Committee, an unselected committee formed solely to investigate Trump and staffed solely with people who despise him, by the way, had no right to be formed to begin with. Okay, Adam Kinzinger, Liz Cheney, these people hated Donald Trump, and they were formed to investigate Donald Trump. And it was an unselect committee. It wasn't really selected bipartisanly. A bunch of people that hated Trump wanted to get together and investigate Donald Trump and prosecute these J6ers. Many of them didn't do anything illegal. I would take it a big step and say probably maybe one or two J6ers maybe had done something illegal. But even then, I don't know, those one or two J6ers, we should probably be looking into whether or not they acted in self-defense. Every single one of those J6ers, if they were charged with some sort of assault or battery against a Capitol Police officer, we need to look into that situation, because those people probably were acting in self-defense. They were taking their clubs and beating people. They were shooting rubber, and they started it. And the crowd was in front of the Capitol here, and the Capitol Police were behind them, and they were forcing them into the Capitol, okay, because they wanted to prosecute them. It was a setup. So the evidence, they deleted the evidence that would have prevented dozens of Americans from being incarcerated. And they did this out of revenge. They did it because they didn't like Donald Trump. And these people should be held accountable to the rule of law. J6ers should be paid. They should receive a huge settlement for the crap that they've been put through. And Carol Jean-Pierre's claim here that, it'd be a bad move on my behalf if I preempted the president or got ahead of the president. Come on, lady, this is literally your job. Your job is to come out there and talk on the president's behalf, okay? So, but we shouldn't expect much from her. She is a DEI hire, although, by the way, she's just DEI. She has no true experience, or she's not credible. She's just not a credible person. She's there because she's Black and she's a lesbian. That's it. So the committee members who engaged in this prosecution of the J6ers, and it was vengeful prosecution because they did not like Donald Trump, and they're mad because their whole plan backfired, okay? That's a personal problem. This is not, the left will tell you, it's political, and they're going after Liz Cheney and Tony Fauci because it's all political. No. This is a personal problem for them. They're mad because their vengeful behavior is backfiring. So I want to take a quick break, but you're listening to Conservative Cat on Cities 92.9. We'll be right back. I'm going to wrap this story up next. Yes, justice for Ashley Babbitt. Yes, 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 yes. Um, yeah, the stories that I've heard about J6, Matthew Perna, another one. He was charged with terrorism. Okay, he was looking at 20 plus years, and he killed himself because he was afraid to serve time in prison for 20 plus years. His whole life was thrown out the window, and instead of serving his time, he killed himself. Okay, so people died because these people deleted evidence and destroyed evidence that would have exonerated people like Matthew Perna. In fact, I think that the attorney, the prosecution who was going after Matthew Perna said, "Hey, if he would have just waited, we would have pled this down, and he wouldn't have had to serve the 20 years like I had originally charged him with." Right? Well, why'd you originally charge him with terrorism? Right? So yeah, I mean, this is ridiculous, and people lied, people should die, or people lied, people died, and they should be held accountable. I'll be right back. We're going to take a quick break. Hey, good morning. It's Conservative Cat on Cities 92.9, the news and Doc Bluing to normal. So do appreciate you tuning in. Yes, the committee members, what they did, they engaged in a vengeful prosecution. And I don't care if they're mad that everything backfired on them. And everybody knows that the J6ers did nothing wrong. It was just a bunch of people in funny hats who were ushered into the Capitol. They didn't do anything wrong. In fact, I would say that a lot of these J6ers were brutalized. Rubber bullets, ammunition, rubber ammunition and tear gas. And I shared a story actually with the folks on the stream. I watched this happen. It's a video out there on deleted video, right? Destroyed video. It finally was resurfaced right after Tucker Carlson, right? We remember the video coming out where people were tear gassed for no reason. They weren't in the Capitol. They weren't doing anything wrong. They were just out there by the Capitol. They were tear gassed by the Capitol Police, and somebody had tear gas all up in their eyes, and they had a water bottle. Somebody next to them had a water bottle and started like pouring water into their eyes to kind of wash out the tear gas. Capitol Police officer comes over, grabs the water bottle, throws it down to the ground, and pushes the people back. Absolutely disturbing. So disgusting. I want to play this. This is Kash Patel, our soon-to-be FBI director, right? Let's take a listen. Here we go.
So I already told you what we did when we briefed Trump on the originations and what he did, based on the intel we had at the time. Then enter Fauci and the media. No, the Chinese would never do this. It's not about, no, it didn't come from that. Then the wet bat thing came out and some other goofy whatever.
Right.
Okay, what did we just learn 6 weeks ago? Gina Haspel, as director of the CIA under Trump, authorized 6 case officers and intelligence analysts to be paid off so that they would change their assessment on COVID origination.
Correct.
That's not a Kash Patel thing.
That's CIA.
That's a CIA
yeah.
institutional decision to spend taxpayer dollars to lie to the world where COVID came from because it fit the narrative that Fauci and the media wanted out there, along with Gina Haspel, because she didn't want Donald Trump to get the credit for reading the intel right and making the hard right decision. But what happens is we're 2 years down the road from that, 3, and that story's been written. You know, that iron has been cast. So half the public is like, what are you guys talking about? That's a right-wing conspiracy. And this is why it's so important to keep drilling at that work, because many more of these instances of conduct will come to light if brave whistleblowers, congressional oversight. And
That's given me a lot of hope.
All right. So that was Kash Patel with Glenn Beck, actually. And Kash Patel was talking about how the whole bat thing was a lie. Okay. It didn't come from bats. The origin of COVID-19 was not from bats. Okay. But Fauci demanded that we believe that story and that he had nothing to do with it. These bureaucrats lied and people died. They lied to the Americans. They lied to the world. And especially when it comes to public health, you don't do that kind of stuff, okay? You should be held accountable for that kind of stuff because people could die. And the left pretends that this is somehow, oh, it's political persecution. You're just going after Fauci because he's a Democrat. You're just going after Liz Cheney because she's a Democrat. You're just going after Benny Thompson and people on the Unselect Committee. You're just going after them because they're Democrats and because they don't like Trump. No. That is a deranged lie. These people need to be held accountable for their actions. And I really don't care if they're mad that their little plan backfired. Okay. It sounds like personal problem to me. You should be held accountable. People and Matthew Perna, right, from J6. He was charged with terrorism. And it was 20 plus years he was looking at. And guess what he did? He killed himself. In fact, the prosecution, the people who trumped up those charges up to terrorism, they came back later and told the family, if he would have just waited, we could have pled that down. We could have, worked with him and we could have, not charged him for terrorism. Well, why would you do it in the first place? I'll tell you why. It was all political theater. They wanted the charges to read terrorism because they wanted to call this thing an insurrection. Anybody who calls this an insurrection is just flat out wrong. This is not an insurrection. So I got to take a quick break, but we're going to talk about Whoopi Goldberg next. She's upset because RFK Jr. is fat shaming people. Whatever you say, Whoopi. Hey, go ahead, smash that like button, share this out with your friends. We'll be right back. We're going to talk a little bit about Whoopi Goldberg. Whoopi Goldberg. Thank goodness these people are gone. Cover-ups, smoke and mirrors, and distractions. Yes. But they do this stuff because of greed. Yeah. They lie because of greed. They wanted big pharma. They wanted the COVID vaccines, even though they lied about ivermectin and how it helped people. Okay, they lied about that stuff, and specifically remdesivir. I mean, I went through all of this with my dad. I actually was thinking about that a lot this morning after hearing the news that Kieran Jean-Pierre didn't deny that Joe Biden is possibly looking at a preemptive pardon for him. I want that guy in jail for what he did to my family and so many others. My dad, he went through COVID-19, and there was this whole, he wasn't vaccinated, okay? But it was so difficult to get ivermectin, and we probably didn't get it to him in time. He came out with his life, right? And I truly do believe it was because of the ivermectin. But there was this other stuff. It's called remdesivir, and they were giving it to people in the hospital. This was another thing that they, like, big pharma wanted to shove down people's throats during COVID because they had a ton of money to be made from it. And this remdesivir stuff, a lot of the people who came down with COVID really bad to the point where they need to be hospitalized, they had comorbidities. Okay, they were either overweight, old, and remdesivir is known to have a terrible effect on kidney health. So you'd go into the hospital with COVID, okay, because you can't breathe. You'd go into the hospital, they give you this remdesivir stuff, you're dead. People died in the hospital because they had comorbidities, and remdesivir is really hard on your kidneys, and then their kidneys failed. So it wasn't so much like COVID killed them, but rather the treatment had killed them. And people need to be held accountable for that, because I don't care if you were a nurse, and I understand that you're just following orders, but at the same time, what's wrong with you? Did you not know that remdesivir is bad on kidneys? Did you not understand that people who were in the hospital with COVID-19 probably didn't have great kidneys to begin with, and then you fed them this crap from big pharma? What's wrong with you? And I know that might be a controversial statement, and there might be some nurses listening, but hey, if you were complicit in this and you knew, and you had the knowledge that, hey, remdesivir probably isn't a good choice for these people, because it could kill their kidneys, and you did it anyway, that's killing people. The negligent homicide, right? I know that might be controversial, but I really don't care. Woo! Hey, good morning. It's Conservative Cat on Cities 92.9, the news and talk Bloomington Normal. Don't worry, Donald Trump is going to pardon the J6ers within the first 9 minutes of him being in office. No, quite literally, he said that. He goes, if not in the first hour, in the first 9 minutes. So I'm excited about that. And I'm really, this morning, it's tough for me because the COVID-19 thing, Fauci lied and people died. They lied about ivermectin. They forced remdesivir down the throats of people who were hospitalized with COVID-19, and the remdesivir wound up killing them, because remdesivir is something that you probably shouldn't be giving to people who have comorbidities like bad kidneys. Okay, and they were giving it to people, and people died as a result. And they lied about the efficacy of the vaccines. They lied about the safety of the vaccines. They lied about the treatments and what prevented COVID-19. Nobody talked about how vitamin D, vitamin C, getting outside, and nobody talked about ivermectin or hydroxychloroquine and how those were effective treatments. And I swear, my dad, he was hospitalized with COVID, and because of the lies and because of the overt, it was impossible to get ivermectin. I couldn't even fill it at your normal pharmacy, like Walgreens and CVS, with a prescription, right? So I had to go to this weird hole in the wall pharmacy to try to get my ivermectin filled. And to this day, I do think that the ivermectin saved his life. and the monoclonal antibodies. He didn't have the vaccine, and he also didn't have remdesivir. He had like one bag of it. His kidneys started to fail, and we said, no, you can't do this. And we weren't even allowed to see him, and people died in the hospital, and their family members weren't even allowed to see them. People need to be held accountable for those sort of things. These bureaucrats need to be held accountable. And this whole preemptive pardon thing that Joe Biden is planning to do, and Caroline Jean-Pierre refuses to deny that he is planning to do that, that's scary. That's really scary, because Matthew Perna died. He killed himself because he thought he was going to prison for life. And it turns out that the prosecutor comes back and he says, oh, we weren't really going to charge him with terrorism. Why'd he kill himself? We just kind of started with that. We were going to plea it down. What? Why'd you charge him with terrorism? All right. So I want to talk about Whoopi. I don't have enough time in this segment, but at the top of the hour, we are going to talk about Whoopi Goldberg, because Whoopi Goldberg is trying to get out there and say that RFK Jr. is fat shaming people simply because he says that Ozempic is not great for Americans and their health. Yeah, Ozempic is extremely bad for you. There's extreme side effects. Maybe you're on Ozempic and maybe you don't have these side effects, but a lot of people do get these side effects. I mean, side effects like vision loss, okay, going blind. I don't know if that is necessarily good for you. If people go blind, there's cases where people have gone blind using Ozempic. So I don't know. I'm just saying, I think, RFK Jr. coming out and saying, oh, organic meals. He goes, instead of Ozempic, which, by the way, we pay for our Illinois government officials to take with their healthcare plan, their government paid healthcare plan, taxpayer funded healthcare. We pay for them to get on Ozempic, which is absolutely ridiculous. Maybe we should give people organic meals. Healthy meals. I'll be right back. We're going to talk about Whoopi next on Conservative Cat Cities 92.9 The News and talk Bloomington Normal. Hey, good morning. Go ahead and smash that like button. I give ivermectin to my dog. I can't stand the taste. I met a guy. So we actually got a prescription of ivermectin, but I mean, I'm going to be honest with you. I took a little bit. There was nothing wrong with it. You look at the ingredients of the, horse paste that people were taking. I was taking like a half a centimeter a day. If you take like half a centimeter a day, you get ivermectin plus some other things in there. But I got it from Farm and Fleet, and I started taking it, and I never came down with COVID when I was doing that. I'll tell you when I came down with COVID, what I was doing. Now, I was smoking, which increased my likelihood of contracting COVID-19. Okay, so I can acknowledge that. But I was a liberal, right? I mean, straight up, I was going to college, and I bought into the whole mask thing, and I bought into the whole social distancing thing. And I noticed that me not going outside, me not getting the fresh air that I normally would get and going and living my life, actually contributed probably to me contracting COVID-19. I mean, I went as far as I was freaked out. I went as far to Instacart a lot of my meals, right? I wouldn't go to the grocery store, I'd Instacart it, and I'd get it delivered to my house. I noticed a noticeable difference, a huge difference when I switched over to my conservative lifestyle, started running, started exercising, my health took priority, my spiritual life took priority. And then I noticed I never contracted COVID-19 ever again. When I was living the liberal lifestyle, sedentary lifestyle, masking, the mask, I think, definitely contributed to me not getting the fresh air, and it was pollutants in my mouth. I mean, I did go to work, so I was working at Buffalo Wild Wings actually at the time, and they had a masking policy, so I'd wear the mask, and I was breathing all of that bacteria and that crap back into my mouth, and I got super, super sick with COVID. Like, could not breathe, had to crawl to the kitchen, like if I needed a glass of water, and I could not stand up because I was so out of breath. And like I said, it was definitely smoking. I quit smoking as soon as I was done with COVID-19, or like when I contracted COVID, I stopped smoking because obviously I was sick. And then I was like, I'm never picking it back up because I don't want to deal with that kind of, so like simple things like, hey, prioritize your health, stop smoking, eat healthy, get outside, don't wear a mask because, for God's sake, the mask, you're breathing, it's a petri dish of bacteria on your face. Yeah. People, they get mad at me when I say, masking is dumb. It is dumb. I just don't understand why you would wear a mask at all, because why would you have a mouth, right? Breathe in and breathe out. There's a hole in your face for a reason. You're made this way because you have to breathe, and to constrict that, it just doesn't make any kind of sense. I didn't buy into the mask thing. After I had gotten sick, I was like, what I've been doing hasn't worked so far. Let me adjust my thinking. Let me shift directions, and I'm going to take the mask off. I'm going to start going outside. I'm going to start running. So I picked up running instead of smoking. So anytime I felt like I needed a cigarette, I was like, all right, I'm going to go for a run. And lo and behold, never contracted COVID-19 ever after that. And in fact, I don't think I've gotten really sick. I've come down with like a stomach bug once in a while, maybe like once or twice, but I used to get sick all the time. But when I changed my lifestyle, changed my eating habits, I was eating fried food, everything, probably a little overweight. I was never really super heavy, but picked up running, started going to the gym a little bit. And I'm not saying like, I'm a gym rat or anything, but I definitely like adjusted my lifestyle and then noticed a huge difference. And the reason why I did that was because I was like, nothing else is working. Nothing else is working that I'm doing right now. The sedentary, not going outside, ordering my groceries. I think that's what actually happened was, my groceries. I ordered. The kid was probably really sick or something, and it was contaminated, right? And I don't know how I got it, to be honest with you. It could have been, the mask. I think it trapped maybe bacteria in there and got me really sick. I was wearing it like all the time. So I don't know. I noticed things weren't working in my life. And then I was like, I'm just going to do everything opposite. Everything that I'm doing now, I'm going to do everything the opposite. And then my life got better, spiritually, mentally, physically, everything. So but there's no money to be made in that. And that's what I'm going to get to. Whoopi Goldberg, she is actually advocating for people to become lifelong patients of Big Pharma. She's advocating for people to get on Ozempic, which is super dangerous. And she wants you to be a lifelong. And here's why. Okay. The View, the ladies on The View, I bet you couldn't watch The View without seeing like maybe 3 or 4 Big Pharma ads within the first, hour. Okay. They are, they're advertisers for Big Pharma. That's why she's justifying Ozempic. That's why she's shilling really for Big Pharma, is because she's an activist for Big Pharma. She's paid by Big Pharma. She's not allowed to bash her sponsor, right? Which is Big Pharma. So she's going to, of course, get out there and be advocate for the interest of Big Pharma, which is to get you on Ozempic. But RFK Jr. coming out and saying, hey, eat 3 organic meals a day. Maybe instead of paying for Ozempic for our government officials, which in the state of Illinois, we're actually paying for Ozempic for Illinois employees. Hold on, government Illinois employees. Let me look this story up. It's kind of wild. So disgusting. Woo! Hey, good morning. I so do appreciate you tuning in each and every single day. I am live on YouTube and Rumble. You can subscribe to the channel. I so do appreciate Monday through Friday you tuning in and supporting the program. Support our advertisers. Any kind of commercial you hear on Cities 92.9. If you call them or if you utilize their services, tell them you heard them on the radio. That's a big help to us. And support them. Shop locally this Christmas season. And thank you for being with us this year. We're having a great time ending the year with you here at Cities 92.9. Now, before I took the break, I was telling you a little bit about Whoopi Goldberg. Whoopi Goldberg, she's an idiot. I can't stand this woman. So she's saying that RFK Jr. is fat shaming people. Okay, and I understand, it is difficult to exercise, it is difficult to diet if, you are uneducated. Now, my hope is that with a health secretary who actually gives a damn about the American people and not big pharma, my hope is that more people will become educated. Because believe me, it was hard for me. I told people on the stream that when I noticed a big difference in my health when I stopped listening to the mainstream garbage. I was listening to the mainstream garbage, wore a mask 24/7. I wouldn't leave my house, ordered my groceries to come to my door, ordered food to come to my door, didn't go outside, didn't exercise. When I stopped listening to the mainstream crap, I was a vegetarian. Because I bought into the whole red meat is the devil, right? Uh, I was so unhealthy. In fact, I contracted COVID-19 and I was so sick. I couldn't even walk to the kitchen. I had to crawl to the kitchen. Now I was smoking at the time. I dropped the cigarettes, started running instead. And I made the decision because I was like, okay, nothing that I'm doing is working. What do? I just have to turn my life around and just do everything the opposite that I have been doing. That was the common sense that I had at the time. But a lot of people don't wake up to that, and they need to be educated by people like RFK Jr. And my hope is that RFK Jr. will educate people in this role. Now, Whoopi Goldberg claims that she knows everything about health. Because she was 300 pounds and then she went on Ozempic and she lost all of the weight. And she knows everything there is to know about health. She further justified that this is the only way to make people healthy because some people are just born genetically larger. So she's out there shilling for Ozempic, which makes sense because you can't watch The View without watching 7 big pharma ads, okay? But she's a health expert, okay? And she knows more than him for reasons that she can't even explain. Actually, let's just take a listen to it, shall we?
This isn't just about food.
No, it's not.
This is sometimes people are born genetically larger.
Agreed. I didn't mean to.
No, I know you didn't.
Yeah.
But I want to say this to
RFK.
That's his name. Because you're setting folks up for shame.
Yeah.
That's what you're trying. Maybe you don't know you're doing. I'm going to give you the benefit of the doubt. I'm going to say you don't know, you don't realize what you do to people when you say stuff like that, because it doesn't work for everybody. And I'm going to show you, sir.
Say stuff like, oh, I don't know, diet and exercise works.
Because I weighed close to 300 less than 2 years ago.
Yeah.
And without the Mounjaro, this would not have happened.
There you go.
Take it off. Take it off. There you go. And I try to tell everybody, listen, this worked for me. This may work for y'all. You cannot take it out of people's hands if it can help. Because if we can keep people healthy, if we can get rid of diabetes, if we can get rid of all of the things cardiovascular, what's wrong with trying to do that?
Nothing.
You're wrong on this, R.
Also, the side effects are not horrible. But what does Kimberly Guilfoyle think?
What?
Of it? That's what I want to know.
She don't agree. She got a body now.
Yeah. Where does Elon Musk come and RFK Jr., 2 medical experts? Who are they?
Elon's right on this.
Elon's right on this.
Yeah.
Also, maybe the brainworm will shrink. Never mind.
All right. I got to get rid of that. That just is starting to annoy me. Okay. So she's prancing around in her baggy clothes. Okay. And I mean, to me, she still kind of looks overweight. Okay. But that's neither here nor there. Okay. I know she's not 300 pounds anymore, but let me talk about Ozempic because there are extremely bad side effects for a lot of people. Like I would say, now I'm just, from my own experience, I have a lot of people in my family, friends who take Ozempic, okay? Almost all of them have vision loss, thyroid cancer, and stomach paralysis, right? Gallstones. A lot of them have these conditions because they're taking Ozempic. Everybody I know who is on Ozempic has some weird side effect going on. Actually know somebody who's on Ozempic right now and has blurry vision. That's messed up. Okay. I'm not saying it's like for everybody, just the people in my life who happen to be on Ozempic, they all have really weird things that are going on. Secondly, losing weight the old fashioned way, diet and exercise, is actually more sustainable because say you get on Ozempic and you lose all the weight like Whoopi Goldberg did. Okay. Great for you. That's awesome. And you managed to keep your vision. Okay. Here's the thing, that's not sustainable because if you don't fix the root of the problem, accountability, discipline, going to the gym, eating correctly, right? If you don't fix the root of the problem, you're going to wind up fat again. Okay, that's just, and here she is advocating for people to become lifelong patients of Big Pharma because if you don't fix the root of the problem and you just eat yourself, to a point where you're 300 pounds, take Ozempic, and then you get down to that weight, and then you just keep getting on Ozempic, and that's your way of going about this. That's not sustainable, and then you become a lifelong Big Pharma patient. Not to mention, if you're on Ozempic and then you experience things like thyroid cancer, and then you'd have to go through chemo, and then you wind up a big pharma patient. That's you're beholden to the Big Pharma way. So losing weight by going to the gym, eating healthy, it doesn't benefit the drug companies. It doesn't benefit them. That's why Whoopi Goldberg is not out there advocating for that kind of stuff. Me, I don't care. We don't advertise with Big Pharma really. So, but even if they did, this program, I'm never going to say that, oh yeah, just get on Ozempic or some sort of drug because that's just not sustainable. Common sense will tell you that that's not sustainable and that's not getting to the root of the problem, which would be diet and exercise. And there is a massive push, of course, to take these medications from Whoopi Goldberg because she is a Big Pharma advocate and she's not going to bash her sponsors. Okay, if you watch The View, you'll probably notice that there's like 4 or 5 Big Pharma ads or like pharmaceutical ads within the first 30 minutes of watching the program. Let's take a listen to RFK now. Here's his message. You mean to tell me you got a problem with this guy? Come on, Whoopi.
The processed food companies, they're deciding what Americans, here is healthy. And the recommendations on the food pyramid and what goes to our school lunch programs, what go to the program, the Swiss program, the food stamp programs, they're all corrupted and conflicted individuals. These agencies, the FDA, USDA, and CDC, all of them are controlled by giant for-profit corporations. 75% of the FDA's funding doesn't come from taxpayer, it comes from pharma. And pharma executives and consultants and lobbyists cycle in and out of these agencies with President Trump's backing. I'm going to change that. We're going to staff these agencies with honest scientists and doctors who are free from industry funding. We're going to make sure the decisions of consumers, doctors, and patients are informed by unbiased science. A sick child is the best thing for the pharmaceutical industry. When American children or adults get sick with a chronic condition, they're put on medication for their entire life. Imagine what will happen when Medicare starts paying for Ozempic, which costs $1,500 a month, and it's being recommended for children as young as 6, all for a condition, obesity, that is completely preventable and barely even existed 100 years ago. And 74% of Americans are obese. The cost, if all of them took their Ozempic prescription, is $3 trillion a year. This is a drug that is made by Novo Nordisk, the biggest company in Europe. It's a Danish company, and the Danish government does not recommend it. It recommends change in diet to treat obesity and exercise. And in our country, the recommendation now is for Ozempic to children at age 6. Novo Nordisk, the biggest company in Europe, and virtually its entire value is based upon its projections of what it's going to sell, of the Ozempic it's going to sell to America. And we have the food lobbyists have a bill in front of Congress today that is backed by the White House, backed by Vice President Harris and President Biden, to allow this to happen. This $3 trillion cost that is going to bankrupt our country. For a fraction of that amount, we could buy organic food for every American family, 3 meals a day, and eliminate diabetes altogether. We're going to bring healthy food back to school lunches. We're going to stop subsidizing the worst foods with our agricultural subsidies.
Yep, you tell them, RFK. So big pharma, most corrupt monopoly in existence, and it will never be moral to embolden those people over healthy lifestyles and healthy decisions. And I would bet anything that The View airs at least 2 pharma commercials each show, and each show, and that just proves to you that these ladies are not going to bash their sponsors. They're just not going to do it. I got to take a quick break, but you're listening to Conservative Cat on Cities 92.9, the news and talk Bloomington Normal. I'll be right back. Woohoo! Good morning. Hey, it's Friday. And like I said, they air big pharma commercials. It makes sense that Whoopi Goldberg and the ladies on The View would not bash their sponsors. I do want to let you know that Governor J.B. Pritzker, their office is pushed to expand the coverage for these high-priced weight loss drugs like Ozempic, okay, for state government employees by putting it into the budget implementation bill. Now, they did this over they did this over the legislative session. Back then, State Senator Jason Plummer said this expansion in coverage was thrown in last minute. Now they passed it. The state employees, the state government employees, they get high-priced weight loss drugs, and of course we know that it's taxpayer funded. This healthcare plan that these government employees are on. He said the plumber said the expansion in coverage was thrown in last minute and said there's been communication between the Department of Central Management Services director and the governor's office about the cost of the last minute addition. And these communications via email, it was all obtained by Freedom of Information Act. Okay. And these emails were redacted, and we don't know how much this actually costed the taxpayers to pay for very expensive weight loss medication. Okay. CMS requested $210 million for the weight loss drugs. And this is what the governor's office also says the program will cost, but we don't really know. Experts say that it's going to cost 3 times that amount. So to cover weight loss medications for our government employees, and we pay for it as the taxpayers, how much are we going to wind up paying for people to get on Ozempic when, I don't know, for free, they could just diet and exercise, right? I want to talk about RFK Jr. here. Let's play this clip real quick, and then I'm going to wrap up this story, and then we're going to get to Trump pledging to pardon the J6ers within the first 9 minutes of him being in office. And I do also want to talk about this town council. This is out of Edison, New Jersey. I talked about this story before where they outlawed Americans to use American flags and to display American flags at town council meetings. And there was this massive patriotic backlash to that ordinance that the town council crafted up to outlaw the Constitution and outlaw American flags to be displayed or used while publicly commenting at town council meetings. So we're going to get to that story as well, but take a listen to RFK Jr. here talking about diet and exercise and talking about how Ozempic, as much as we're spending on government employees to take things like Ozempic, okay, we could just get them 3 organic meals a day, 3 good meals a day, right?
The insurance companies you would think would want us healthy, but they actually make more money if we get sicker.
Mm-hmm.
And then, of course, the pharmaceutical companies, if you have a chronic disease, you're a lifetime patient. This drug, Ozempic, costs $1,500 for a week. And there's now a bill before Congress that would force the insurance companies, Medicare, to pay for it for every American who's obese. Well, that's 74% of our population.
Right.
That's going to be $3 trillion a year. And for a tiny fraction of that, you could give every American 3 meals a day of organic food, and diabetes would disappear overnight. You know, diabetes is treatable with food. Right. With exercise, and obesity is. The insurance company.
Yeah. There you have it. I mean, we're paying taxpayers, we're paying all kinds of money for our state government employees to be exempted. And now, Ozempic, and now you've got a federal bill, right, that the Harris administration, Harris Biden administration, that they approve of. They've got a bill that would force insurance companies to pay for people's Ozempic. Right. So, yeah, and it's a $3 trillion bill. Taxpayers are going to be having to fork that out because, again, I'm going to remind you that, of course, you've got the government. They don't make money, okay? They take money from the taxpayer. We're going to be paying for people's Ozempic through things like Medicare. And that's just not right. It's just not right. Medicare is going to cover things like these high cost weight loss medications. So the fact that Whoopi Goldberg is out there berating RFK Jr. as if he has no idea what he's talking, especially when she sounds so ignorant, she's so out of touch. Okay, that tells you all you really need to know about Ozempic. If Whoopi Goldberg is sponsoring Ozempic, then that tells you all you really need to know. RFK Jr. is out there advocating to make America healthy again, and he's on the side of Americans. The people who have a problem with that, I'm sorry, but you're not on the right side of history on this one. So I'm excited for RFK Jr. to be in this health secretary position. I hope he uses it to provide education as it pertains to health. So I want to get to Trump pledging to pardon J6ers. So Trump promised to pardon most people in prison for J6 related offenses. Okay, J6 related offenses being trespassing, which is absolutely ridiculous because they were ushered in and in some cases probably forced into the Capitol by Capitol Police, spraying them with rubber ammunition and tear gas. But he's reiterated that he intends to do it within the first hour of being in office. So according to NBC, President-elect Donald Trump said that he's looking into pardoning his supporters involved in the attack on, I love how they phrase this on NBC, it's so funny, involved in the attack on the U.S. Capitol January 6, 2021, as soon as he gets into office, his first day in office, saying that the incarcerated are living in hell. They are. They're being denied, like, clothes, bathrooms, bed, right? So they're in these very, very terrible conditions and they're being imprisoned, and really they're just political prisoners. So on his first day of office, Trump said that he's going to bring legal relief to J6ers who he said are being put through a very nasty system. So he says, quote, "I'm going to be acting very quickly first day." And he said, quote, "They've been there for years. They're in this filthy, disgusting place, and they shouldn't be. That shouldn't even be allowed to be open. Okay, this prison, and a lot of them are being housed, and they shouldn't even be there, and it's disgusting, and this prison shouldn't even be open." He will not pardon the ones he believes deserve to be in prison, but the vast majority, he indicated that he would. I don't know if anybody deserves to be in prison. We'd have to, and I'm sure Trump is going to do his due diligence here, but I'd be worried that, you might see something like battery and that he beat up a cop. We have to get to the bottom of that because perhaps somebody beat up a Capitol Police officer because that Capitol Police officer engaged that individual first. There's plenty of stories of Capitol Police officers clubbing people for no reason and then them fighting back. The J6ers fought back. And if you fought back and they fought you first, I mean, that's just self-defense, right? So I hope that he does his due diligence and figures out if there were J6ers who were in prison for things like assault and battery, and he doesn't just pardon the ones that were trespassing. I hope that he pardons the ones that also were charged with assault and battery in some cases. I don't know. I'd have to look at them, right? And, there's got to be an investigation done to get to the bottom of it because perhaps those people charged with assault and battery, they weren't actually, it was all self-defense and they trumped up these charges and they were actually acting in self-defense. People were sentenced to years in federal prison for something that is, in some cases, so unclear, like, did they trespass? Not really. There's evidence of them being ushered in by the Capitol Police. Now, I got to take a quick break, but we are going to get to John Strand. So he's a J6er, and he was sentenced to 3 years in prison. And there's footage of him. His crime, walking about the Capitol building, being ushered in through the doors, walking around peacefully, and then leaving when being asked to leave by the Capitol Police. So he left because the Capitol Police asked him to leave, and then he was like, "Oh, okay, I'll leave." That's injustice. Okay, that's wrong. He was sentenced to 3 years in prison because he walked around the Capitol building thinking he was allowed in. So that's not justice. That's injustice. I'm going to play a clip of John Strand talking about his prison sentence and talking about his alleged crime, of walking around in the Capitol. We're going to play that here next on Conservative Cat Cities 92.9, the news and talk of Bloomington Normal. Hey, good morning. So do appreciate you tuning in. Go ahead, smash that like button, share this out with your friends. Like I said, this taxpayer cost for Illinois state employees, I mean, it still remains unknown. I don't think that we're ever going to find out. But it was requesting $210 million for the weight loss drugs for the state employees, and the governor's office also says that the program will cost that much, but we really don't know because experts say that it's going to cost 3 times that much. Plummer said with Pritzker's track record of predicting revenues and expenses compared to predictions from outside groups, he said that he'd defer to the outside groups because Pritzker's projections and predictions of expenses and revenues and things like that, it always winds up a lie, right? He might predict that the program here, or that this paying for Ozempic for the state employees is only going to cost $210. But fast forward a few years, it's probably going to wind up costing 3 times that amount, which would be like close to $600 million, okay, to pay for Ozempic for these individuals in state government. He's got a bad track record. Obviously, the migrants, he said that, it's only going to cost X amount for us to house the migrants and to provide them legal advice, right, on taxpayer dime. And then it wound up being like $3 billion or something, or $3 million or something crazy like that. $3 million for illegal immigrants here in the state of Illinois to pay for their existence. So Plummer said this at the time in May when this was talked about, the Ozempic plan for, when I say Ozempic plan, it's other things other than Ozempic. It's just costly weight loss medications that we're paying for via taxpayer dollars, right, for these state employees, which is just ridiculous. We've seen other programs that this governor has recommended just absolutely explode in cost. Usually when there's stuff in the budget, you'd like to think enough due diligence is done and there's enough transparency that both sides can dig into it and say, okay, we're comfortable with these numbers. We haven't been provided information on what the department's analysis found when it came to the Ozempic costs. Did CMS do an analysis to figure out, hey, yes, in order to provide, these state employees with Ozempic, it's going to cost $210 or $210 million. Okay, was there an analysis done that came up with that number that, you have to do an analysis to figure out how many employees are overweight and would need something like Ozempic, how long that they're going to be on Ozempic, and then you'd have to do an analysis. So without insurance, Ozempic costs, actually RFK had higher numbers. It was like $1,000+ around $950 to $1,200 a month is what you would cost without insurance, is what Ozempic costs you. Okay, this is a ton of money every month, and it's on the taxpayer's dime. And if this bill goes through, which they're probably going to shove it through right before, I don't know if it's passed already, but it's a federal bill and it requires insurance to pay for Ozempic for people with diabetes, people with obesity problems. And, like I said, another mandate. And now what you'll see is the cost is going to go up. The pharmaceutical companies are probably going to increase the cost of Ozempic because they know that this bill got passed, and they know that this is an endless supply of money because, like I said, the government doesn't make money, they take money, so they can just increase the taxes on the people. It's going to bankrupt people, or it's going to bankrupt the country. They're going to tax people into oblivion. They're going to try to raise the taxes on the people so that way they can afford the increased cost of Ozempic, because that's what Big Pharma is going to do. That's what they're going to do. They're going to raise the cost of Ozempic, knowing that the taxpayer is footing the bill. Okay. The expansion of coverage covers Wegovy, Mounjaro, Ozempic. These are expensive weight loss medications. Mounjaro is what Whoopi Goldberg took, not Ozempic, but it's like Ozempic. Amy Schumer opened up on cable TV about the reason why she had to stop taking Ozempic, that she had side effects that made her feel really, really sick. Okay. So Amy Schumer opened up and talked about it on cable TV, that Ozempic's not good for some people. It's really bad. It causes things like vision loss. I don't know about you, but I don't know if that's necessarily a good thing. It's an FDA-approved medication, Ozempic. Now, the 2025 budget plan, the State Employee Group Health and Life Insurance Program, is proposed to receive $6.9 billion. That's a 21% increase. So the 2025 budget plan, so for this year, their budget plan, the State Employee Health Insurance Program, got funneled all kinds of money, $6.9 billion more. Funneled into that program for them to have health insurance. Okay, that's 21% overall increase from the previous year, the 2024 budget plan, right? So that's an increase from the last year. The state taxpayers and workers share the cost of the program. So it's not totally up to the taxpayers, but it's subsidized by the taxpayers. And we shouldn't be paying for people's weight loss drugs. I mean, I'm just going to be honest with you, because what's next? Are we going to start paying for your cosmetic surgeries? Or are you going to start paying for your hair care, your barber to do your hair every week? I mean, come on, let's be real here. Woo! Hey, good morning. I'm live on social media. Go ahead, find me, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Rumble. Look, John Strand. So I want to play this clip. John Strand talks about how he was walking around the Capitol building as a J6er, right? And he was told to leave by Capitol Police. And guess what he did? He left. Okay. This is complete injustice, because this guy, John Strand, was sentenced to 3 years in prison for walking around the Capitol and being ushered around. Capitol Police did ask him to leave, and then he left. He didn't hit anybody. He didn't hurt anybody. And he was sentenced to prison for 3 years. This is the type of guy that I'd imagine Donald Trump is going to pardon within the first 9 minutes of being in office. Take a look.
I did that calmly and held my colleague safely to get her out of the melee of that vortex at the door there. But then once I stumbled inside and picked her up and pushed her, led her forward.
So there you go. I told you that people were being forced into the Capitol. There was just mayhem outside, and the Capitol Police were spraying people with rubber bullets and spraying people with tear gas. People felt like they were forced inside the Capitol here. And he was talking about him and his colleague. They were there for the event, and they stumbled inside. Like, they actually stumbled inside because there was just mayhem outside. So they were kind of forced inside.
I immediately observed my surroundings to figure out who. I expected nobody to be in the building, but there were many people in the building that were clearly there from other entrances besides the one I had just come through. So I was additionally confused, thinking, I guess they had allowed entry in other places and that people were supposed to be passing through the building, because there was no other way to understand what else was happening. There were police officers with weapons in their hands. They were very calm. I did not see anyone inside the building that was agitated. I did not see or hear any directives from law enforcement when I first entered. There were just people in front of me that were walking through velvet ropes in the main public areas. I did that calmly.
So there you have it. That's John Strand. He was sentenced to 3 years for what? Simply walking around the Capitol. And it's all a deranged lie. All of it. And if any politicians continue to claim that this was an insurrection or that it was worse than 9/11, that's a deranged lie, and you are just psychotic. Okay. If you say that there was an insurrection, you're trying to deceive the masses, and you are just objectively naive and objectively stupid, because there is no in between. It was either an insurrection or it wasn't. And there is no in between. This obviously wasn't an insurrection. People were ushered into the Capitol by Capitol Police, or in some cases forced into the Capitol. And while there were several bad actors, I'll say maybe a handful of bad actors, maybe you'd probably have to do some digging, make sure that they weren't acting in self-defense. A majority of them did not deserve persecution that day, and did not deserve persecution, like 3 years in prison. And for that, Donald Trump is going to hold to his promise, and he's going to pardon those people who should not be there, who should not be wrongfully imprisoned. I do have to take a quick break, but you're listening to Conservative Cat on Cities 92.9, the news and talk Bloomington Normal. I do want to talk a little bit about this Edison, New Jersey town council. Now, they have rescinded their unconstitutional ordinance that banned the Constitution and American flags and items from their public meetings, okay? People brought constitutions, people brought American flags to a public meeting, and they were public, they were participating in public comment, and then they like displayed the American flag. And then after that, they were like, oh, well, we're going to craft an ordinance that outlaws that kind of stuff. So unconstitutional, it's not even funny. So they've had no choice, of course, because it was unconstitutional. And if it went into the court of law, and if people had sued over this, they would have lost. So they had no choice but to rescind this ordinance that banned American flags and constitutions from public comment and from using those for public or with public comment. So I'll be right back. You're listening to Conservative Cat on Cities 92.9. Hey, good morning. I so do appreciate you tuning in. Go ahead and smash that like button. I read a story about a mother preparing for her daughter's wedding, died from taking Ozempic, and she was using it to lose weight, the Ozempic. Yeah, I mean, come on, vision loss, side effect. I don't know if the ends justify the means here, right? If you end up with death, or if you end up with vision loss, I mean, come on, is that really worth it? Probably not. And like I said, the main thing here is the sustainability factor, okay? You can go on Ozempic and say you skirt death and say you skirt vision loss or gallstones or thyroid cancer, which a lot of people are getting from Ozempic. Say you skirt all of the side effects. Still not sustainable, because you're still going to wind up on Ozempic forever, and eventually you might come down with side effects because you're not getting to the root of the problem. The root of the problem is that you have crappy diet and that you have crappy exercise. You have to fix those things, and then you won't be fat anymore sustainably. Now, maybe temporarily getting on Ozempic to try to help some people in some extreme cases, like you're 300 pounds, you can't really move, and you can't fix your diet, or you can't fix your exercise issue. But you could probably fix the diet and you'd probably lose weight, right? And it might be hard, but it's still more sustainable than Ozempic. Maybe in extreme cases where you've got people who are 300 plus pounds and can't move and they need like a weight loss drug to kind of kickstart. But even then, I would say that it's still possible to get on a weight loss journey, right? And to just fix your diet if you're sedentary like that, 300 plus pounds and you're sedentary and you can't move. It is extremely harder to lose weight when you're that heavy. So maybe something like that to kickstart it, but we shouldn't be paying for it for everybody, specifically our Illinois state employees to be using it. We shouldn't be paying for it via Medicare. Medicare covers it, or insurers cover it for people who are obese. We shouldn't be talking about this on a large scale. This is not an effective treatment for people with obesity or diabetes. Diet and exercise has always been the correct treatment for those types of things. And if a doctor tells you, oh, well, you're just built big, give me a break. Give me a break. You're just genetically predisposed to obesity. Give me a break. No. You have accountability over your own life, and you can change your life or whatever, I mean, that's like, for example, my hair, it's brown. I put blonde highlights in it or whatever. I have brown hair. Okay. However, I can change my hair if I want. I can put blonde highlights in it a little bit, or I can use it to cover up the gray hair. You know, I'm Italian. I think Italians tend to get gray hair. Plus, it's the stress of these Democrats giving me gray hair. I'm telling you. But you can change anything about your life, you know, and to be sold this bill of goods that you can't change, or that you have to remain in any kind of state, whether that be obesity or even things like cancer. Okay. And I know that this might be controversial, but I think cancer is totally preventable. I really do. And I understand that, you know, genetics might play a role in it, but I think cancer is preventable. If you know that you've had cancer in your family, do things like fasting, right? Fasting there's tons of science behind that. And actually, the BIBLE, the basic instructions before leaving Earth, talks about fasting and going on regular fasting and praying. And I think a lot of cancer, what we know today, because look at it, back in the day, this is a new phenomenon, and it's probably because we don't participate in regular fasting like they used to do in biblical times, or even, you know, 17, 1800s. We kind of stopped doing this 1900s, 2000s, when we left that religious practice. Woo! Hey, good morning. You're listening to Conservative Cat on Cities 92.9, the news and talk of Bloomington Normal. So do appreciate you tuning in each and every single day. Now, before we took the break, I was telling you a little bit about this American flag ordeal at the Edison, New Jersey Town Council. This is an ordinance, by the way, that they crafted. This guy, he showed up with a constitution, okay? And they didn't like that, so they banned the constitution. They banned things like American flags and other items from, you know, displaying that at public comment at the town council meetings. They said you can't bring items like that to public meetings. Absolutely unconstitutional. You cannot tell Americans that they can't have American flags on them. That is like so communist and straight up out of like communist China, that you can't have like the American flag. It's so crazy. Let's take a listen. Here's Savannah Hernandez reporting out in front of the Edison, New Jersey Town Hall.
This is Savannah Hernandez in front of the Edison, New Jersey Town Hall. Now, this small town made headlines after one of their residents was kicked out of their town council meeting for waving an American flag.
Good morning, and if you continue, I will have to forfeit. You'll have to forfeit your time.
An ordinance was passed by Nish Patel, the town council president, trying to ban residents from using props when they were speaking. So a resident decided to come and wave the American flag and hold up a constitution in protest, which resulted in the president utilizing 2 police officers to get him escorted out of the meeting. In response, you had multiple residents come to the meeting tonight with American flags. They were both waving and wearing them to protest this ordinance. Now, because so many New Jersey residents came forward to have their voices heard and push back against this ordinance, the town council actually brought forth a motion to repeal this tonight, and they all voted in favor of rescinding it.
This ordinance started out with good intentions of having some regulations, as Councilman pointed it out, but I believe that it went too far. I will be in support of repealing it as well. And if we need to do this for joint insurance funds to protect the township from litigations, I hope a future council can take on this challenge and do a much better job than I did.
Now, this is only step 1, and the actual vote isn't going to be happening until January 8th. But again, the entire town council tonight voting on yes, we will be rescinding that bill. And even the president coming forward and saying that he thinks it was a mistake to bring forward this ordinance, that he apologizes for it, but wanted to give you guys an update on, again, that story that made national headlines as there was outrage across the country after the American flag and the Constitution were deemed a prop by the Edison, New Jersey Town Council. They have since rescinded that, and The New Jersey resident.
All right. So angry protests, angry residents were protesting this. And, they're going to try to say, oh, it wasn't the protest that, caused us to rescind this ordinance. Give me a break. No, you guys were on you were wannabe tyrants. You were on a power trip. And, it's foolish. Their whole reason for the ordinance was that, it's too distracting for us to look at the flag and also hear what you're talking about when giving public comment. So we're banning props, and they labeled the American flag as a prop. They labeled the Constitution, like little pocket constitutions, props. If you're not smart enough to multitask, and if your little brains can't comprehend colors and, the American flag, and then also listen, you probably shouldn't be holding office. That probably disqualifies you from holding office. They did not rescind the ordinance because they wanted to. They rescinded it because they had to. They were going to be beat up with some lawsuit. Somebody was going to challenge them on this, and it was going to be deemed unconstitutional. So they had to rescind this ordinance. The fact that they think that they could get away with this, absolutely insane. And kindergartners could tell you that this was unconstitutional. You can't ban the American flag. What's wrong with you? These loser public officials, they barred anybody from holding the American flag or using the American flag. These people should be banned from holding public office. They should be fired. They've dedicated their time in public service to trample all over the rights of the American people. And to say that they're an enemy of your freedoms, that is an understatement. They trampled all over your God-given rights. And the fact that people actually elected these clowns is a scandal in and of itself, okay? Nonetheless, the public refused to back down. Good for you. You stood up to the tyrants, and you preserved your God-given rights. That's what America is all about. Hell yeah. What a great story. They got the American flag back at their council meeting, and that's what that's about. That's what it's all about. All right, I do want to shift gears and talk a little bit about Santa Claus. Santa Claus. Now, if you're a kiddo listening this morning, I know mom and dad, they like to use Santa and say that Santa puts you on the naughty list. They want to say that he's not bringing you presents to keep you in line. Okay. Now my nieces and nephews and the kids in my life, I always say, oh, don't listen to your parents. Santa loves you. Right. But, I remember my parents doing this all of the time. They'd torture their kids and to try to keep them in line, they'd say things like, oh, Santa put you on the naughty list. You got to get on the nice list again. And then you'd straighten yourself out and you wouldn't be stealing cookies from the cookie jar. That was always my crime as a kid, was stealing cookies from the cookie jar. I just couldn't help it. And then I'd lie about it. My mom would be like, wait a second, did you eat cookies out of the cookie jar, Cat? And I'd be like, no, I didn't do that. No. And I'd lie about it. I just couldn't keep my hand out of the cookie jar. So my mom and dad, they would definitely try to use Santa to get us to stay in line. Now, there's this clip here that I think is really, really funny, and I just can't stop laughing. Now, certainly, I don't think that this is a new clip, but I've never seen it before, and I think that you're really going to like it, and I like playing these kind of things when it's Friday. I think it's really funny. But the good thing is you get older and then you use Santa to torture your kids in the same way, right? You get older and you're going to start to use Santa. Hey, Santa's going to put you on the naughty list if you're not good for mom and dad. So this kid was not having it. His parent tried to pull this little stunt and he tried to say, oh, Santa's putting you on the naughty list. This kid was not having it. In fact, he issued threats against Santa Claus. Yes. And like I said, I'm pretty sure that this isn't a new video, but it's going viral again. But it's the first time I've seen it and it cracks me up so hard. So take a listen.
You aren't absolutely. That's why you're on the naughty list.
I will swear, trust me.
Well, that's why you're on the naughty list because you're being naughty right now. So you're going to be on the naughty list if you keep talking like that.
No, because Father Christmas has not been very nice to me.
Because you're being naughty, so you're on the naughty list.
No, I'm not. I'm on the good list, actually.
You're not because you ain't being good.
I am on the good list. If you keep saying that word again and again and again, I'm not on naughty list.
Father Christmas rang me last night when I was at work and said, you better tell Jackson to start being a good boy or he's going to stay on the naughty list and he won't get no presents for Christmas. That's what he said to me. So you got to start being a good boy.
Then I'll do an uppercut to him.
No, you won't do. No, what?
I'm going like this. Punch his beard off.
You're just silly, man.
Hey, trust me, I'm not on bad list.
You're on the naughty list, mate.
No, I'm not.
Well, then be a good boy, Steph.
I'm not on the naughty list. Now, if you couldn't tell, there's accents there. Father Christmas is what they refer to as Santa because that's the UK's version of Santa. So Father Christmas, same thing. He says, Father Christmas is not being very nice to me. And the conversation kind of continues here between this dad. I'm imagining it's his dad. And the little boy is informed that Father Christmas put him on the naughty list. And that's where the kid absolutely loses it. And he says, I'm going to uppercut him. I'm going to uppercut him and I'm going to punch him. I'm going to punch his beard off. That's what this kid says. So Santa, steer clear of this kid. Do whatever he asks, give him whatever he wants, and move on to the next house. I wonder what he did. I'm going to be honest. I wonder what this little boy did. What kind of crime did he commit? The UK. You guys have a blessed rest of your day. I'm kind of curious, you know, now there was one thing that I did as a kid and it was really bad. And, it was around Christmas time and I told my brother, I have a twin brother, I told him to stick his tongue on a freezing flagpole. Okay. Or it wasn't actually like a flagpole. It was like a piece of metal, that we had in the middle of the yard and it has like a little lamp on it. So it wasn't like we didn't put flags on it. It had like a little lamp and we never put a flag up there, but it's like similar to a flagpole. And you know, it gets really cold in Illinois and, you know, I honestly, being, you know, the naive kid that I was, I didn't think that his tongue would get stuck. But it did and ripped his taste buds off. And I got into so much trouble for that. And I remember my parents saying, well, now you're on the naughty list, Katrina. Now you're on the naughty list. So, all right, you guys have a blessed rest of your day. Merry Christmas. We are going to take a break, but we're going to be back Monday morning. Text me and let me know what your Christmas plans are. I'd love to know. 309-451-9299. Bye-bye. Be blessed and have a safe weekend.